From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Tonight, a landmark victory for Ogoni people as a federal high court sitting in Abuja orders Shell Petroleum Company to pay for environmental degradation to the tune of 45.9 billion naira, but Shell appears undecided on payment. Atrocious abduction by gunmen in Zamfara State, a mother and her 8-month-old baby taken away from their home, husband also attacked. More reactions trail the assault of the Nigerian diplomat as House of Representatives consider invoking Article 9 of the Vienna Convention. And World Health Organization considers artesunate a treatment for malaria for test on capacity to treat COVID-19. Plus business sports news from Abuja and later international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Nigeria listed among 10 countries with high exposure to debt risk in the World Bank's full-year financial report for 2021.
On sports news tonight, UEFA Super Cup match between Chelsea and Villarreal head into extra time.
And from Abuja, Federal Executive Council raises hope on return of Twitter, just as a new highway tolling policy is approved by the FEC, chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
And it's been a battle spanning over a decade, but now it appears to have paid off as a federal high court in Abuja today orders Shell Petroleum Company to pay the people of OGONI in River State the sum of 45.9 billion naira as compensation over the degradation that has lasted many years. The payments must be made within 21 days to the OGONI people. The case is between the OGONI people and Shell, which has lingered for 31 years. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
It's been a legal battle for both the people of OGONI in River State and Shell Petroleum Company, and the Federal High Court in Abuja, presided over by Justice Ahmed Mohammed, is considering the matter. In 1990, the people of OGONI sued the multinational petroleum company over the destruction caused to their farmlands and water sources due to activities of the company, particularly its oil spillage. On June 14, 2010, Justice Ibrahim Buba of the Lagos Division of the Federal High Court issued a judgment awarding the cost of 45.9 billion naira as compensation for the sufferings inflicted on the OGONI people. But Shell Petroleum Company appealed the judgment and lost, after which the Supreme Court also ruled in favor of the OGONI people. 10 years after the judgment, the company is agreeing for a settlement. Counsel to Shell Petroleum Company, Chief Aham Ejelamo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, told the court about the willingness of the multinational company to make the payment. In his ruling, Justice Ahmed Mohammed says it will amount to bearing the judgment of the Apex Court for him to rule otherwise, and ordered Shell Petroleum Company to make payment of the cost to the OGONI people through their lawyer, Mr. Lucius Nwosu, a senior advocate of Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the lawyer to Shell, Mr. Aham Ejelamo, told the court today that Shell is prepared to pay the 45.9 million naira, but that the company would need time to make the payment. However, in a separate message to our energy correspondent, the media relations manager for the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, Mr. Bamidele Odugbeso, insists that the oil company is not responsible for the spill, as it maintains that the damage to the oil infrastructure was caused by third parties during the Nigerian Civil War. According to his message, the Nigerian Civil War was a challenging period which resulted in significant damage to oil and gas infrastructure in the Niger Delta region. He adds that while the SPDC joint venture does not accept responsibility or liability for these spills, the affected sites in the Bubu community was fully remediated. End of quote. And to other stories, after intense legal fireworks involving the Imo State Government, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC), and the former governor of Imo State, OKOROCHA, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja today declined the application by the former governor to restrain the state government from taking over his property. Justice Ahmed Mohammed ruled that it would be against the interests of justice to grant such an application in the existing applications challenging the court's jurisdiction on the matter. In the meantime, counsel to Senator OKOROCHA notified the court that the EFCC and Imo State government have already put out the properties for demolition.
The case involving Senator Rochas OKOROCHA and the Imo State government is for the forfeiture of properties alleged to have been acquired illegally by the former governor while in office. Counsel to Senator OKOROCHA, Mr. Ubama Ruabuchi, a senior advocate of Nigeria, told the court, presided over by Justice Ahmed Mohammed, that the properties of his client are being marked for confiscation and demolition already. He praised the courts to issue an interim order to the EFCC and the Imo State government not to carry on with their action. The application, however, could not go through following a motion by the counsels to the Imo State government and the EFCC challenging the jurisdiction of the court to sit on the matter during the vacation period. In their separate submissions, the EFCC and the Imo State government described the application by OKOROCHA as an abuse of judicial process and could not subsist in view of the motion filed already challenging the jurisdiction of the court to hear the matter during vacation period. They argue that once an issue of jurisdiction is raised in any suit, it must be determined and resolved first before the court can take further steps. In his judgment, Justice Ahmed Mohammed refuses to grant OKOROCHA's application on the grounds that he would have to hear the motion challenging his jurisdiction to sit on the matter during vacation. After the sitting, counsel to OKOROCHA shares his view on the ruling.
I wanted it on record that we are afraid that something could happen to my client's properties in Owerri. So let the court know that that apprehension exists, even though he ruled against me, but it is now on record that we are afraid.
But the counsel to the Imo State government has a different view.
So Imo State now says these properties now belong to us. Go to court and challenge it. Go to court and say, no, I own this property, not you. That's the way it should be done.
The matter has been adjourned to the 24th of August 2021 for hearing on the motion challenging the court's jurisdiction.
And away from legal matters, the relative peace in Tudunwada village, Gusau ward in Zamfara state was disrupted in the early hours of today with an attack on the home of a councillor by gunmen. The gunmen shot the former councillor, Babangida DAMBA, on the hand and broke into his home before abducting his wife as well as his 8-month-old baby. The man, who is still in shock, narrates the incident.
What would have started out as a normal day in the home of a former councillor of Tudunwada Gusau ward in the GRA area of Gusau in Zamfara state took a rather disturbing turn when armed men invaded his home to wreak havoc.
8-month-born baby.
Babangida DAMBA narrates how brazen the criminals were when they opened fire over his refusal to voluntarily let them in. In the process, he was shot on his hand. His wife, Hassana Sadauki, and his 8-month-old son are now with the abductors.
They opened the sliding glass of the window. They asked me I should open the door for them. They want to kill me. I say I can't. I can't open the door. So they tried to break the door. They couldn't have the chance to break the door with the guns. So later they decide to continue firing. Look at my curtains. Look at the cushions. Everywhere you will see the bullets. All here is bullets. Come I show them with my eyes more than 4. I saw 4. They didn't even put a mask to their paste. They leave their paste just like that.
Devastated by the unfortunate incident, Mr. DAMBA says he recovered live ammunition used by the criminals to force his door open while appealing to the police to come to his aid.
Use this like that.
The Zamfara State Police Command will confirm the incident as the troops of the command are on the trail of the abductors to ensure the safe return of Damba's wife and his innocent 8-month-old baby.
Meanwhile, help seems to be coming the way of the people of Benengwari in Kaduna State as the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Faruq promises to deploy more troops to ward off bandits from the town. The Army Chief, who is visiting Governor Nasir El-Rufai for the first time since becoming the new helmsman of the Army, gives assurances that other areas where banditry is holding sway will also be visited by the troops.
I will reclaim all those forests, and now we will be there every time. Sometimes some of these things take time. If you are deploying troops, even if they are on the ground, to move them, to mobilize them, to prepare them, to train them, to provide their requirement takes some time. But we will get there. All this is on our plan. Like I mentioned, we'll be in those bushes. Many of them will even establish forward operating base there. Securing main supply route is a task that we must do to allow people to pass and go to their locations. And what we are doing actually is taking the battle to the place instead of just staying on the road to prevent happenings. If you go to where they are or where they claim to be, then you disrupt their own activity. They have no time to prepare. If you just wait for them, then they will choose where you can't reach. Before you respond, they have finished and gone. And that's what we are trying to avoid, and we will get there.
At that meeting, the Kaduna State Governor was represented by his deputy. And to other stories, some elections observers are advocating the strengthening of institutions that could stand the test of time, particularly through the introduction of reforms in the electoral process. They also agree that free and fair elections, especially at the state level, is achievable. Speaking at a meeting to review findings from the recently conducted local government elections in Lagos and Ogun states, the observers note that there is an urgent need to give states' electoral umpires the kind of attention that has helped upgrade the performance of the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Take away from your presentation.
It is a meeting of indigenous election observers in Nigeria, and the crux of the discussions here is elections credibility and inclusiveness, with particular focus on local government elections.
The level of apathy was...
Having monitored several local government elections in Nigeria, some of the participants advocate the need to fight for the independence of states' electoral bodies.
These state commissions are completely, absolutely under the control of the state governors. So I think, and my recommendation will go along that line. What can we do to make these state electoral commissions, insulate them from the control of state governors? Because otherwise, we can't see any. So the need to address independence of the state is very key.
There is so much concentration on the center, INEC. So in fact, we've not even been paying attention at all to the state independent electoral commissions. Meanwhile, if we actually want to have good governance, good development, it must start from the grassroots.
The group also canvasses for inclusivity, insisting that INEC and the state's electoral bodies must think of ways to make voting accessible to all eligible citizens.
Sometimes when we talk about access, it's beyond just opening a door for someone to go through. There are a lot of things that are involved. For a lot of people, even opening that door might be a difficulty, not to talk of them going out to actually participate in an election, fulfilling their civic responsibilities.
Electronic voting is an inclusive mechanism that brings everyone to a platform that is easy. Let me use the word ease of voting. You don't have to stay like 2-3 hours waiting to be counted and all of that. Yeah, I think that's the way to go now.
Elections are the only legitimate means of recruiting leaders in a democracy, But this leadership selection process has been adjudged very weak, especially at the state level in Nigeria, hence the call to strengthen the state's electoral bodies.
In part 2 after the break, more reactions trail assault on Nigerian diplomat as federal government considers next step going forward. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Federal Executive Council considers resuscitating Twitter in Nigeria. Victory for OGONI people as a federal high court sitting in Abuja orders Shell Petroleum Company to pay for environmental degradation to the tune of 45.9 billion naira, but Shell appears undecided on judgment. Mother and her 8-month-old baby abducted from their home in Zamfara State. And World Health Organization considers use of artesunate, a malaria drug, for test against COVID-19. And since the viral video showing the manhandling of a Nigerian diplomat hit the public space, Nigeria and Indonesia have been at loggerheads on how to resolve the impasse. Our correspondent Kayla McGraw, who is following the story, reports that there are still frayed nerves on the matter and that the Association of Nigerian Ambassadors are urging the Nigerian government not to budge until a suitable step is taken. She brings us this update.
This kind of incidents is not...
The viral video of a Nigerian diplomat, Abdurrahman Ibrahim, being assaulted by immigration officials in Indonesia has elicited several responses. First, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which has threatened to review Nigeria's diplomatic relations with Indonesia, and from the Indonesian government's Ministry of Law and Human Rights, who are accusing the diplomat of striking the first blow at the officers. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs claims the Indonesian ambassador to Nigeria has apologized for the incident, as have the erring immigration officers, whom reports say have been relieved of their duties.
What we have decided to do is to recall for consultations immediately our Nigerian ambassador in Jakarta, in Indonesia, and we will have full consultations at the highest level and decide what next steps to take, including a review, of course, of our relations with Indonesia.
More questions are being asked on this matter, on whether it is a grand design to undermine the country or perhaps just a simple error.
One will expect an apology in the national newspaper of Indonesia as well as that of Nigeria, and if that is acceptable to Nigerian government, fine. At the same time, the person of the diplomatic agent that has been violated will have to be assuaged one way or the other, either through compensatory actions.
We reached out to the Indonesian ambassador in Nigeria, Mr. Usra Harahap, to confirm if he will be returning to Indonesia as diplomatic protocols demand, and to corroborate the claims by the Indonesian government that the diplomat was picked up in a house they raided, didn't have proper documentation on him, and initiated an attack on the immigration officers. We still haven't heard from his office. Nigeria accounts for over 21% of Indonesia's total trade with Africa. Trade between both countries has come to $2.2 billion. There are 15 Indonesian companies in the country. One of them makes the most popular instant noodles in Nigeria. There's talk of a gas plant in the near future. All of these things could be jeopardized if the relations between Nigeria and Indonesia are reviewed by the federal government. The House Committee on Diplomatic Relations are moving to invoke Article 9 of the Vienna Convention, declaring everyone at the Indonesian embassy in Abuja persona non grata. That is, if the country fails to effectively explain their actions against the Nigerian diplomat. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
And back to the courtrooms. Nollywood actor Larinwaju James Ominka, popularly known as Baba will be spending longer days, this time in police custody, as his trial failed to go on today at the Lagos State Special Offences Court sitting in Ikeja, as the judges have proceeded on their annual retreat. Court Registrar Ibrahim Hassan says the retreat usually holds during the vacation period. Channels Television obtained the notice of the court's vacation, which will run from Monday the 16th of August till Friday the 17th of September. With this development, Baba Idesha's trial will continue on the 27th of September. And let's go over to our Abuja studios where Gloria Mozoge has some more stories. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, Millicent. Good to see you. And we begin with an announcement by the federal government that it will lift its ban on Twitter in a matter of days. The Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, announced today that after the Federal Executive Council meeting, chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, that the status of the conversation with the microblogging site has reached an amicable stage, with agreements reached in all areas except 3. He explained that the remaining 3 unresolved areas is simply a matter of when and not if there would be an implementation of conditions discussed. The weekly virtual Federal Executive Council meeting is once again chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, at the State House with 5 ministers physically in attendance. Once again, the suspension of Twitter operations in Nigeria since June 5, following the removal of a post by President Buhari threatening to go after regional successionists, came to the fore at the briefing.
As of today, we are not aware of any Twitter representative in Nigeria. And we said that that representative shall be a staff of Twitter, but it must be one that has access to the global management of Twitter, so that he will not, so that he can serve as a liaison between Nigeria and Twitter, so that we're able to the country representative should also have a physical office address to Nigeria.
Against the backdrop of conditions negotiated upon, the Minister of Information and Culture disclosed that conversations on the controversial ban of the microblogging site have reached an amicable stage.
I must say that it's a matter of days rather than weeks, hopefully, right? I hope in a few weeks' time or a few days' time, we should be able to reach an agreement with Twitter. There are many, I think we just have about 3 or 4, about 3 areas really, where we have disagreement, and even those areas, not really disagreement, is more about when will they do it. For instance, I look at the issue of office. Well, they are saying that probably it will be between 2022 that we can have an office in Nigeria. Those are the small grey areas that we are working on.
Separately, the Federal Executive Council meeting approved a new open tolling policy that does not exempt government officials from paying toll fees.
We will adopt an open tolling policy as distinct from a closed tolling policy. The difference is that on the open tolling policy, which is what we were used to before, you pay toll at a barrier over a fixed or predetermined distance. So the start-off tolls that we have for financial modeling and investment decision-making, cars will pay 200 naira, SUVs and Jeeps will pay 300, private bus will pay 300, commercial buses will pay 150, luxury buses and trucks will pay 500.
The reintroduced tolling policy on dual carriageways by the federal government after over a decade will not commence until the affected roads are motorable. For students of Edo College in Benin City, the state capital Edo, have been advised to avoid engaging in abusive behaviors in a learning environment given the consequences of such behaviors. The charge was given by experts during the psychosocial support and counseling following an abuse case that occurred at the school dormitory. The incident, captured on video by an eyewitness, went viral on social media, prompting a strong response from the Edo State government. Our correspondent, Osaze Obaze, reports.
The physical abuse of Edo College students by fellow students is setting in motion a series of consequences apart from the suspension of the principal of Edo College and the housemaster. The Education Ministry says it is working in sync with other concerned ministries and agencies to ensure that all that is necessary is achieved.
The Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Issues, and the Post-Primary Education Board and some guardian counselors went to Edo College to organize a group counseling session for the children in school by way of providing them psychosocial support. You will agree with me that the incident that occurred must have, dampened their morale and destabilized some of them, which could also affect their academic performance.
The Ministry of Social Development and Gender Issues says apart from psychosocial support, the students are also told the legal consequences of engaging in acts of abuse.
We actually gave them lectures and assured them that since like this, there's a law really that has been passed, the reviewed law that have to do with gender-based violence, dealing with those that will perpetuate ease as regards to that. They all have their place as it regards to dealing with such issues. The perpetrators of such are brought to book, whether they are adults or they are minors.
The victims of the abuse and members of their families are said to have been allowed some privacy to prevent them from further trauma. Osaze Obaze, Channels Television News.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Millicent, for more on the news at 10.
Many thanks, Gloria. When the news at 10 returns, we have more updates from Business News, Federal Executive Council announcing the new tolling policy and other stories. Do join us again. And we're back in Kaduna State, where officials of the state government today met with warring Atiap, Fulani and Hausa communities in ZANGO, KATAF local government area, asking them to stop all forms of hostilities that have led to the loss of lives and property in the chiefdom. The officials who represented the governor appealed for peaceful coexistence among the groups. The government condemns the unwarranted killing and maiming of innocent people in the communities.
Zangun Kataf local government area of Kaduna State has in the past few weeks witnessed a spate of attacks as a result of communal conflict between the Atiap people and their Fulani neighbors in the chiefdom. Worried about the seeming unending conflict in the chiefdom, Governor Nasir Al-Rufai again convenes a meeting with the leaders of the Atiap, Fulani and Hausa communities with the aim of bringing peace to the area. The governor is represented by his Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, who is joined by the Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Matters, as well as officials of the Kaduna Peace Commission. After much deliberation, which held behind closed doors, the submission is that all sides are complicit in the recent violence that rocked the chiefdom.
What is clear is the fact that deviant in all sides are responsible for what we are experiencing here. But on the part of Kaduna State government, we demonstrated again, or we reassured them of our commitment to peace building and also provision of more security assets here.
We are calling on them that no other person can bring peace to Apia Chiefdom if the people themselves and I'm specifically talking about Fulani, Atiap, and Hausa, if they themselves do not accept that they are brought together by God, it's by God's design. It's a divine design that they are together, and that there's a need to coexist peacefully with one another.
The quest for land ownership, failure or unwillingness to abide by law and order, the failure to accept responsibility, as well as failure to align with peace are some of the issues the concerned groups say must be addressed if peace is to reign in the area.
The first thing I think that we must do, if we are being sincere with ourselves, that leaders of both the Atiap, the Fulanis, the Hausas, must first of all talk to their people to down to weapons. That's the first step. Everybody should down his weapons. There should be no further attacks. Then the state government this time should be the one to constitute a reconciliatory committee meeting themselves.
Meetings like this have been held in the past to broker peace amongst the three major groups in ZANGO and KATAF local government area. However, what is paramount at this time is a need for all major gladiators to accept to live together in peace, in spite of their differences, while the government on its part should ensure that there is a visible security presence to help in restoring and maintaining peace and order in the area.
And for the World Bank's report on debts across the world, here's TENIOLA SHOBOWALE with some business news.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The World Bank has listed Nigeria among the top 10 countries with high debt risk exposure as at the end of June this year. According to its 2021 Audited Financial Report 2021 for International Development Association, the World Bank rated Nigeria 5th on the list with $11.7 billion IDA debt stock. The financial statement for IDA further mentions that Nigeria had a total undisbursed balance of $8.07 billion, consisting of $1.46 billion loan approved but not yet signed and $6.61 billion signed loan commitment. Meanwhile, the Debt Management Office has reacted to the World Bank report, which classified Nigeria among 10 high debt risk countries. In a statement released today, the DMO reassured that Nigeria is not in any form of debt distress, contrary to the World IDA report released today. The Debt Office also clarified that IDA loans, which carry tenures of 30 to 40 years, represent one of the most favorable borrowing options for countries like Nigeria, and is also consistent with the medium-term debt management strategy of the federal government. The DMO adds that the cost of IDA loans, which is the service fee of 0.75%, is considerably low, thereby moderating the cost of debt service. Commercial flight operations commenced today at the Bayelsa State International Airport, with the United Nigeria Airline aircraft touching down at about 3:45 p.m. The aircraft, which took off from the Murtala Mohammed Airport Chu in Lagos at exactly 3 p.m., had on board the state governor, Doyediri, Tokyo Olympics silver medalist in wrestling, Blessing Oworodudu, and other top government officials.
Thank you. This is the maiden commercial flight of United Nigeria Airline, and as you can see by me here is the chairman of United Nigeria Airlines. And so from today, this one is the special one. Now you can book online. You can now book, and we hope that by next week or thereabout, they will commence the usual commercial flights from Lagos to Yenagoa and from Abuja to Yenagoa. Daily flights. Yeah. Daily flights.
The FMDQ exchange has approved the listing of Dangote Cement's 3.64 billion naira Series 1 bond on its platform. This follows the recent successful listing of the industrial giant's 100 billion naira commercial paper, which allows it to raise funds through the issuance of medium to long-term debt instruments. Meanwhile, Dangote Cement says its proceeds of the Series 1 bonds will be used to fund expansion projects and refinance its working capital expenditure, as well as its short-term debts. On Monday, Dangote Cement listed 3 tranches of 50 billion naira bonds on the Nigerian Exchange Limited under its 300 billion naira debt issuance program. It's another win for the bull as it extends its reign at the local equities markets for a second session in the week. John Mekwa has details of today's transactions at the Nigerian Exchange.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the bull continues its dominance today as the market records more gains at the close of trading. On the floor of the NGX, 142 billion naira was gained in value. The all-share index edged up 0.69%, while not as high as Tuesday's session, but is still at the 39,000 point level, with the market cap higher at 20.5 trillion naira. Volume is lower, though, today at over 181 million units, traded in almost 3,600 deals, worth 2 billion naira. Now, let's take a look at the counters. Banking was up 0.45%. So was consumer goods, though minimal at 0.02%. In this counter, Honeywell Flour recorded almost 2 billion unit volume of trade valued at over 3 million naira. Oil and gas also did well. The index closed higher, 0.19%. O accounted for this, over 6 million of the volume of trade in the sector, while industrial goods ended flat. The market ended with a positive breath, with 19 tickers gaining and 14 losing. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm John Mekwa.
Thanks a lot, Ini. Meanwhile, major global stock markets are not left out in the positive trend. They ended Wednesday's trading session mostly positive as investors digested another batch of corporate earnings as well as a not-so-bad U.S. inflation report. Here are some of the closing figures. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Teniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, World Health Organization contemplates the use of artesunate, a malaria drug, as a test against COVID-19, plus international news from around the world in 5. Please stay with us. Here in Nigeria, the governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, has attributed majority of the crime being committed in the state to increasing cases of drug abuse. He explains that cracking down on the use of hard drugs would go a long way in dealing with security issues. Mr. Obaseki said this at a briefing after the monthly Joint Security Council meeting at the Government House in Benin City, the Edo State capital. The Edo State Police boss, Mr. Philip Ogbadu, confirmed a reduction in criminal activities, including including kidnapping. He also announced the recovery of some vehicles which were stolen in different locations across the state. Onto the international scene, the World Health Organization has announced it is studying 3 anti-inflammatory drugs as potential treatments for COVID-19 patients. Among the drugs being studied in the clinical trial is artesunate, which is already used to treat severe malaria. The trial, taking place in 52 countries, is expected to be completed by May next year.
Today, we're pleased to announce the next phase in the Solidarity trial, called Solidarity Plus. Solidarity Plus will test 3 drugs: artesunate, a treatment for severe malaria; imatinib, a drug for certain cancers; and infliximab, a treatment for immune system disorders such as Crohn's disease. These drugs were chosen by an independent panel of experts that evaluates all the available evidence on all potential therapeutics. The trial involves thousands of researchers at more than 600 hospitals in 52 countries.
Let's now head over to our London studios, where Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Taliban have captured the key Afghan city of Pul-e-Khumri, 140 miles north of the capital Kabul, giving the insurgents control of a strategic road junction. Since Friday, the Taliban has seized at least 9 provincial capitals in Afghanistan in a lightning offensive that appears to have overwhelmed government forces. According to US military assessments, Kabul could fall to the Taliban within just 90 days.
Afghan leaders have to come together.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has said he does not regret his move to withdraw troops from Afghanistan, as thousands of Americans have already died.
They've got to fight for themselves, fight for their nation. The United States, I'll insist we continue to keep the commitments we made of providing close air support, making sure that their Air Force functions and is operable.
A court in China has found a Canadian businessman guilty of spying, sentencing him to 11 years in prison. Michael Spavor has been detained since 2018 after being arrested with fellow Canadian ex-diplomat Michael Kovrig. The verdict will test an already strained relationship between the Canadian and Chinese governments. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the court's sentencing was absolutely unacceptable and called for his immediate release. Meanwhile, a British man has been arrested in Germany on suspicion of spying for Russia. German federal prosecutors said the man, named only as David S., worked at the British Embassy in Berlin. He allegedly passed documents to Russian intelligence at least once in exchange for an unknown amount of money. The arrest was the result of a joint investigation by German and British authorities. Multiple fires across the Mediterranean Sea have been burning through the night, forcing hundreds of firefighters to be deployed to battle the blazes. At least 25 Algerian soldiers and 17 civilians have been killed in wildfires to the east of the capital Algiers. More than 100 fires have been reported across 17 Algerian provinces. Firefighters were also battling forest fires in the region of Calabria and on the island of Sicily in southern Italy. The fire brigade said they had carried out more than 300 interventions over the past 12 hours. Meanwhile, dangerous wildfires have reappeared near ancient Olympia, sparking public concern over the safety of the archaeological site, which is the birthplace of the modern Olympic Games. A report by human rights group Amnesty International says that the Ethiopian military and its allies are responsible for widespread sexual violence against women in Tigray. Amnesty says overwhelming evidence shows sexual violence has been rampant since the first days of the conflict. Amnesty's Secretary General said the severity and scale of the sexual crimes committed are particularly shocking, amounting to war crimes and possible crimes against humanity. Mount Etna's southeastern crater has grown in height after 6 months of activity, making Europe's tallest active volcano taller than ever. Italy's volcano monitoring agency has said that Etna's youngest and most active crater has risen to a record of 3,357 meters above sea level. A About 50 episodes of ash and lava erupting from the mouth of the crater since mid-February have led to a conspicuous transformation of the volcano's outline. And finally, couples chemistry has been put to the test in Hungary as husbands and wives took part in the nation's wife-carrying race. Dozens of husbands carried their wives over rough terrain and through giant muddy puddles. Couples prepare for months on end ahead of the challenging race. The wife-carrying tradition has roots in Viking law, but was recently established in Finland, where it has taken place since the 1990s. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Chelsea Football Club are champions of the UEFA Super Cup 2021 after beating Villarreal, the Spanish side, 6-5 on penalties, with Raul Albiol missing the decisive spot kick. The Champions League holders, Chelsea, took the lead 27 minutes into the game through Hakim Ziyech, who was substituted after sustaining a shoulder injury. In the 73rd minute, Gerard Moreno, the Spaniard, equalized for the Europa League champions to ensure the game went into extra time. With no goal after 30 minutes, the game was decided via penalty, with Chelsea winning their trophy. Newly signed PSG soccer star Lionel Messi has been presented to fans along with his new number 30 jersey at the club stadium earlier today. Messi waved at fans, gave a thumbs up and threw his jersey into the crowd of delighted fans who cheered his name. He told journalists that his dream is to win another UEFA Champions League title, one that has long eluded PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. Now the move will add the Argentine, one of the best players of his generation, to an already formidable PSG attack that includes Brazil's Neymar and French World Cup winner Kylian Mbappe. Meanwhile, the president and CEO of PSG, Nasser Al-Khelaifi, says it's an amazing and historic day to present Lionel Messi as a player for the French soccer powerhouse. Al-Khelaifi insists the signing of Messi by the club is in line with European soccer's financial fair play rules.
And this is amazing and historic day for the club, for the football world, and it is a fantastic moment for us. Everybody knows Leo. He's the only football player who won 6 times Ballon d'Or. And with Leo, he makes the football magic, beautiful, and he's a winner.
In the tennis, Rafa Nadal has withdrawn from the ATP Cincinnati Masters just a day after his withdrawal from the Toronto tournament had already cast doubt on his fitness for the US Open. The 35-year-old Spanish star has been suffering from a left foot injury since his semi-final exit at the hands of Novak Djokovic at the French Open in June. World number 4 Nadal's withdrawal means that none of the big three will compete again before the New York fortnight. And that's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Today, the Federal Executive Council raised hopes of the return of Twitter as it approved a new highway tolling policy. It was also a day to remember for the Ogoni people as a federal high court sitting in Abuja ordered Shell Petroleum Company to pay for environmental degradation to the tune of 45.9 billion naira, but Shell appeared undecided on the judgment. That's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night. Stay safe.